Welcome to a new episode of Books and Beyond from the Winter Park Library, recorded live in the recording studio at the library in beautiful Winter Park, Florida. In Books and Beyond, we have conversations with writers, musicians, artists, presenters, and other contributors. Most of our guests have appeared live at the Winter Park Library or will be presenting soon. We hope you'll subscribe to the Books and Beyond podcast and that you'll stay up to date with library goings-on at winterparklibrary.org/events. That's winterparklibrary.org/events. I'm Michael Werner, and I'll be your host for our interviews. Enjoy the show. Hello out there, library patrons, readers, and smart people everywhere. This is Michael Werner, your host of the fabulous Winter Park Library's Books and Beyond podcast. We've got a special guest today, but before we get to our special guest, I just want to make an announcement about the library itself. There's just so much stuff that goes on here. We have the library has over 100 events every month. Everything for kids, for adults, for just about any topic you can name. Right now, there's several tax-related things going on because it's tax season. So we like to call this place the Winter Park University because there's just so many things going on. And one example of that is our guest that we have today. I'd like to welcome retired General Mark Hertling to the podcast. Hey, Mark.
It is great to be here with you. And I have to give a shout out to one of your employees here, and that's Jody Lazar. She is in my MBA program right now that I teach over at the Crummer School of Business.
Okay.
And she is awesome. So she's just a great representation of what the library is and what you do over here.
Yeah, well, I know Jody quite well, and every time I see her, I ask her if she's getting smarter.
She is.
And she says that she is. Well, let me give you a brief introduction to Mark before we plow into why he's here. Mark is a retired general from the U.S. Army, served for several decades in various spots around the world. I think his biggest experiences were in the Middle East, and he's written a book related to that. He went to West Point, graduated in 1975. He has other degrees. He went to Indiana University for a kinesiology master's degree, came back eventually after the service because he was not deployed. He retired to Winter Park to take a job, I think. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then got a doctorate degree here at Rollins College and is now a professor in the School of Business, at the Crummer School of Business right here in Winter Park. So, again, welcome, Mark. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Michael. We never thought we would retire in Florida in 2013, but the job, which I'm sure you'll talk about a little bit, at Advent Health came up. And from there, we've worked at a bunch of different places in the area, and we've come to grow to love Florida and especially Orlando.
Yeah.
So it's a great place to live.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because just on a personal note, I've lived here a long time, and I've tried many times to get out earlier.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to see this. I got to live here. I got to do that. And I did a bit, but I just came back here and said, I love this place.
Yeah.
I love Winter Park. I love Florida. I like the access to the weather, the beaches, everything about it. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, you're here to talk about your book. You have a book coming out, I believe, in March. It's called If I Don't Return, A Father's Wartime Journal.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, may I ask a couple personal questions?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So
I'm an open book.
You're an open book.
In a library.
Yeah, that's very appropriate. Okay, so I understand you grew up in St. Louis.
I did.
So tell me about your youth. What did you like and what did you do?
Well, in St. Louis, I came from a lower income family,
Okay.
and this is an interesting part of that story. I had never left the city of St. Louis and had never flown on an airplane until I went off to West Point as an 18-year-old.
Really? Okay.
And so since then, been to 123 different countries, lived in Europe primarily for 12 years, went to the Middle East for 3 years, spent some time in the Far East and Korea, and just the Army has given me the opportunity to see the world and meet a bunch of great people. But going back to St. Louis, grew up there, huge St. Louis Cardinal fan. Went to.
Did you want to be a baseball player?
I did, actually.
Yeah,
I did want to be a baseball player, but didn't have the skills. So I turned into a swimmer and a water polo player, which I did at the military academy. Went to a Catholic high school, a Catholic grade school, And then a guidance counselor came up when I didn't have enough money to go to a college and said, you might want to consider this place called West Point because they actually pay you a small fee every month, and all you got to do is after you graduate is give them 5 years of your life in the Army. And it sounded like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah.
So in 1971, I went off to the academy. And at that time, the Vietnam War was going on, and there were not a whole lot of people that wanted to go into the military or into the Army.
Right.
So I was lucky. I don't think I'd get into the military academy today, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, it's just so many smart people and so many really good students. But went off to West Point in 1971, and it changed my life. Just learning about values and the culture of the military and the profession of arms, and having been faced with a whole lot of challenges, throughout a career that's one thing after another that test your competencies and your effectiveness and your leadership, to be sure. So it was an interesting dynamic just to do something I never thought I would do. There was no military in my background. My father served in World War II, but so did everybody else.
Right.
And it was just a new life for me. And since then, my wife and I have traveled all around the world. We've moved 27 times in our marriage,
Wow.
And now we're settled down.
You think this
Hopefully.
is it? You think this is it?
I think this might be it.
Yeah,
This could be it.
Good. So as a younger person, when you realized you couldn't make it as a baseball player,
Right.
You really had no aspirations to be in the military
No.
prior to the guidance counselor situation.
No, it was just a way to get to college,
Okay.
and to get an education. But then turning into that place and seeing what they offered and the life that resulted from it was just terrific. It was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and that leads right into your book. One thing I really, just in general, that I really enjoyed about your book, I had a chance to look at some of the early PDF copies of the book, was how you intermingled your journal that you kept during the wartime, and we'll talk about that, the journal, and then your current day reflections on that.
Yeah.
So just let's take a step back. How did the book come about?
Yeah, it's a great question because it came about before going to Desert Storm.
And those years were?
1990, 1991.
Okay.
I was a young major in a cavalry squadron. I was the chief of operations in a cavalry squadron. And when we were told we were going and we were deploying out of Europe, the intelligence factor said, based on Saddam Hussein having the fourth largest army in the world, they had just conducted an 8-year war against Iran, so they were battle-hardened. Hussein had used chemical weapons against the Kurds, his own citizens. So our intelligence analyst said, there's a chance that the cavalry squadron, which has a mission of being out front of the division, would suffer anywhere up to 50% casualties. Wow. So when you hear that as a young soldier and you're in an organization that is doing its duty and serving everyone else who's following behind in the division, you start thinking to yourself, hey, I might not make it back. There's a coins flip chance of me not surviving this.
Yeah.
So my wife and I had 2 young children, 10 and 7 years old, Todd and Scott. And I thought, okay, if I don't come back, what do I want these young boys to know about me?
And when you say coming back, you were based in Germany at the time? Yeah.
Based in Germany, but when I say coming back, I'm saying
coming
if
back
I'm
alive. Yeah,
coming back alive. Yeah.
Right.
What do I want these 2 young boys to know about their dad? So I started keeping a journal, just one element every day, a half a page in a green Army notebook. And it was about all kinds of topics, and not necessarily about the war, which we didn't get to until later. But we were in the desert for a good 3 months before the war started. So it was just daily occurrences, talking about emotions or friends or character, and giving them advice as young men, soon-to-be men, about how they should live their life. So that's how it started. Well, here's a spoiler alert. I did survive. I came back. And of course, it was a quick war, quicker than anyone would have expected. The war lasted about, a little over 45 days, but we were only in combat for 4 days of intense battle. And of course, I write about that too after the war was over, what we did during those 89 hours of movement into Iraq, and the engagements we had and the fights we had and the things we saw. And then at the end, after the war was over, we were there for an additional couple of months after the conflict. So I wrote about things I saw then in a post-conflict environment. But all of these journal entries were a page or maybe a page and a half. I came home.
And you hadn't planned doing anything with them. They were just for your own.
They were just for the own kids, for
yeah.
our kids.
Yeah.
And when I came home, the boys were still, at this point now, they were 11 and 8 instead of 10 and 7 when I left. And they didn't want anything to do with this.
Right.
This was not impressive to two young children like this. So threw it into a footlocker, truthfully. The journal just was lost for a couple of decades. Well, a few years ago now, 35 years later, both of our sons have also served in the military. They've done things. They've gone to combat multiple times. And our youngest son came up to my wife and said, "Hey, Mom, where's that journal Dad kept during Desert Storm?" And she gave it to him. And unbeknownst to me, he typed it up into a Word document and inserted pictures. And in Christmas of 2024, we're all sitting around the living room with the grandchildren and the kids and everything. And after all the presents were gone and we had that post-present opening high that everybody gets where everybody's exhausted and drinking their third cup of coffee, he came up to me with this box, and in the box was the manuscript typed up.
Okay.
And, obviously, as I say
completely surprised to you.
Complete surprise. And obviously, as I say in the book, I got a little misty, emotional. And as I thumbed through the pages, the sights and sounds and thoughts and everything that we experienced 35 years ago went through my head. But he kept standing in front of me as I was thumbing through it, and he said, "Dad," he said, "my brother and I, Todd and I, realized what you were doing when you were writing this. You were preparing for us if you didn't return, if you didn't come home." He said, "But now you got to take it further." He says, "You've lived an additional 35 years. You've seen more combat. You've done other things. You've, spent 30 more years in the Army, and then you've had a career in healthcare and in journalism and in education." He said, "Finish it for your grandchildren to give them the legacy you were meaning for us." So, truthfully, Michael, I don't think he believed I was going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it immediately became a labor of love. And what I did is I went into the journal entries and determined I would keep the original journal entries in the book and then write about the same subject that I'd written about 35 years ago with an expanded view of that particular subject. So in writing about the emotions or the fear of going to combat multiple times or the anxiety or the dynamics of leadership or what I had learned about the way the Army had changed and the way we use intelligence, all the things that I talked about the first time, I elaborated on with extensive chapters, and that's how the book came about. And I finished it in a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was that your intent, or are you?
No, it just became such a labor of love that, and my wife used to see me disappearing into our office, which is right off the kitchen, and she'd know I'd be in there, and every once in a while she'd come in, and I would be an emotional wreck because I had not only read what I wrote, but I had tried to establish more of a backing to it in terms of lessons learned since then. And truthfully, never thought that this would be published. But I have a good friend here in Winter Park, a guy by the name of Navy Bob Ronska, who also wrote a book.
We know Navy Bob. Bob's been on the show.
Okay, great. Well,
yeah.
Navy Bob is a good friend of mine. We've been through some of the same things. And I asked him about how he published his book, and he gave me the name of a guy at Ballast Books.
Is that who his latest book was with?
Yeah.
Leading with Love, I think.
Leading with Love, yeah. And his other book, Beyond the Sea, I think that's the title of it.
The new one.
Under the Sea or Beyond the Sea. I can't remember. Yeah. And two great books, by the way. And he introduced me to the publisher at this Ballast Books, and then I sent the manuscript off to him. And I'll never forget, he said, "Okay, thanks a lot. I'll take a look at it. We've got a lot of manuscripts coming in." He says, "I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks." Well, the next morning he called me, and he said, "I spent the entire night looking through this manuscript." He said, "We've got to publish this thing."
Wow.
He said, "This is a great book." So that was high praise.
I'm from the publishing business. That's not common.
That's not common at all.
Common, Mark.
So this was in September or early October, and we went on a fast track of getting it published, and now it's available on March the 10th.
Just October of
2025.
2025. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wonderful.
So it was pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, again, it's great to have you here. May I read something
Sure.
that just jumped out at me? It was actually it's from the. I want to share with the audience here. It was from the front cover or the front page of your journal.
Right.
I just thought it would kind of help us set
Sure,
the stage
absolutely.
a little bit. To Todd and Scott, that's Mark's sons. The pages that follow contain the random thoughts I had during my deployment of Operation Desert Shield. I arrived in Saudi Arabia today with the knowledge that this would be a significant event in my life that I want to share with two of my three best friends. I think the other one is your wife.
Yeah.
With the hope that this might give insight into the man you both call Dad. I'll record my thoughts so that you might share them with me when I return. I love you both, Dad. So that was from the front page of the original journal, which was written in 20 December 1990.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just thought that sort of helped set the
we
stage a
had,
little bit.
we had been in the Saudi Arabian desert at that point about 2 weeks when I made the first journal entry. So we had been there a while already. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to start writing. And then, as you see in the book, almost every day, it wasn't quite every day, I made a new journal entry on a different subject.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is that like, Mark? I mean, going to a situation like that where you might die. I mean, what are you feeling when you leave home and your kids are there and your wife, and
yeah,
it must be traumatic.
You know, and that's what I try and relay in the book about, no one talks about, well, that's not true. People don't elaborate on fear of going into the unknown like this. But as a soldier, when you raise your right hand and take the oath, you're literally taking an oath that you will give your life in defense of the nation, in defense of the Constitution, the ideas that we stand by as a nation. So you're often not put in that position.
Right.
But when you are, it's significant. It's a significant emotional event, as we call it in the military, a C with the acronym. But it causes you to reflect, and that's really what this journal was all about. What can I leave behind to those I love if something happens? And as you read, I'm sure through the book, there were some silly entries too. I mean, I had a whole chapter on MREs, the food we eat, and explaining how we eat them and what they consist of, and then when I did the reflections during the elaboration, I elaborated on what we're eating today in the Army and how it's changed. So it was just.
Tell us about that. How has it changed?
I mean, more meals, different kinds of meals, more capability to heat them within the actual pack itself.
Okay.
More condiments in the little small pack.
Yeah.
The entrees are different. I mean, they go anywhere. I mean, we would have never thought of this, but now there's an MRE pizza. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And I talk also about locations where, like at the National Training Center in California, the soldiers that work at the NTC do not eat MREs. I mean, it's kind of a unwritten rule that you bring your own cooking gear out in the back of your Humvee and cook in the wadis of the desert. But those are some of the funny stories in there about something like MREs, which are very different than the stories about friendship or emotions or the combat stories that I tell in the book.
So how did you go from so you've got journal entries. And did you use all of them, by the way, in the book?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got journal entries, and then you have reflections,
right,
as we're talking about. What inspired you to? How did you make the connection to your thoughts today versus then?
Well, that's the part where my wife was coming in the office every once in a while, because I would read the original journal entry, and like all old guys, I'd say, "Holy cow, did I really do that?" Number one. Secondly, man, have things changed. And thirdly, this is fascinating for me to see the backstory. I've now got to write about what real life is in the military or in the other organizations I was in, and to give some insights. And here's the reason, Michael. I mean, less than 1% of the American public serve in the military.
Right.
So most people don't know these things, and they're fun. One of the jobs I had after I left the Army was being a military analyst for CNN for 10 years.
Yes.
And what I found there was the things that seemed simple to me that I could explain about military life just blew the anchors away. They had no idea some of those things occurred in the military. So if you can keep it simple and tell the stories in living room language, it gives civilians who've never served in the military the opportunity to experience what the military does and what they're all about.
Yeah, and one of the things I think jumped out at me was the difference. Well, when you wrote your journal entries, you didn't have a clue. I mean, you didn't have a
No,
clue what was going to happen.
no.
You had no idea what was going to happen. You obviously survived those years, and you prospered, and you grew in the military. You got promoted over and over again, and you went on to have a wonderful life. How did you connect that? I mean, I'm thinking back, and because I don't have that kind of experience in my
Yeah.
background, so that life or death situation. How did you view that juxtaposition of today surviving, prosperous versus then unsure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll use the example of the middle section, which is mostly about the wars.
Okay.
The first section was just things that I would write to the boys to let them know what I was thinking. The middle section was a description of combat. And then the last section was the description of what came afterwards. So in that middle section, Desert Storm was a conventional fight against tanks against tanks, artillery against artillery, aircraft coming in, being prepared to fight other aircraft, a lot of soldiers on the ground. You were fighting a foreign army that was also wearing a uniform. Okay, fast forward to 2003, the next time I went to combat in Iraq, the same place, and it was an insurgency. A complex insurgency, by the way, which had, religious overtones and dynamics of your enemy didn't wear a uniform. You didn't really know who the enemy was. They were fighting for a different reason. They were underground. They were in the swamps. They were in different places. So from the military perspective, it wasn't a conventional fight like we had been trained to do in Europe in the 1990s and applied it to Iraq. It was now it was a counterterrorism fight, truthfully, and it was a regime change operation, which is difficult in and of itself, the Saddam Hussein regime. So in telling that story, it was fascinating. Well, then coming back in 2000, and by the way, in 2003 when I went there with other people who had not seen combat, the younger soldiers, I had seen the elephant, the so-called, quote from, I can't remember who it was from, who said, once you see the elephant, you understand what battle is like. And I had seen the elephant in '91, so my anxiety.
Where did that come from? The elephant. I mean, what does that mean?
Oh, I'm drawing a blank on who said it. It was a British philosopher, I believe, or a British soldier that says, "Seeing the elephant of war."
Okay.
You know what it's about.
Right,
the first
right.
time you're scared, but then you get used to it, and then you have a different approach to it. And we're going to mess that up in the recording here because I can't remember the name of the person that said it.
Yeah, that's right.
But in 2003, I had seen the elephant, others hadn't. So your anxiety level is lower, your fear level is lower, you're more confident in what you're doing. It's not the first time you've seen combat, so you know what to do and you know some of the challenges that you'll face. Fast forward again to 2007, when I'm now a division commander. The first time I'd only been in division command for about 2 months at that point. Now I've got a bunch of young soldiers who had never seen it, and I'd seen it twice. There's a story in the book where I was walking around the headquarters before we deployed from Germany, and I went into the Judge Advocate General section where all the lawyers were and all their clerks were.
Yes.
And I was talking to them, just trying to give them a pep talk a couple of days before they left. Hey, we know what we're doing. We know what we're getting into. We've got a good plan, trying to do that leadership thing. And there was this young woman who pulled me aside and she said, "Sir," she was a young sergeant. She said, "Sir, can you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?" She'd never been to combat. So we went outside, just the two of us. She said, I just want to talk to you one-on-one. When we got out into the hallway, she said, "Are you going to bring us all home alive?" When you get a young 20-year-old saying that to you, first of all, I can't promise her that.
Of course not.
What I can say to her, which is what I did, hey, you've been trained, you're part of a good team. What I didn't say is you're part of the legal group, you'll always be in the headquarters, you're not going to be facing combat, the fire. But she could have been hurt with an errant missile coming into the headquarters.
Sure.
But, I tried to assuage her fears, but it tells you that she was experiencing in 2007, going into combat the first time, the same thing I was experiencing in 1991, and she needed a leader there to calm her down. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that make the differences. The other thing I'll tell you, Michael, is in one section, one very large section, I talked about the evolution of intelligence in the military. As a cavalry squadron in 1991, we were conducting a mission called an advance guard where we were feeling our way toward the enemy. We were trying to use our eyes and ears and communication devices to find the enemy so we could pass it to the tank units to kill the enemy. By 2003, the intelligence systems in the Army had changed. There was no need to feel things out. You had more perfect intelligence. It wasn't completely perfect, but you had overhead platforms, intelligence feeds, you had human intelligence from some of the people you had on the ground. By 2007, that had changed again. And then even today in the Ukraine war, intelligence is garnered from a UAV flying over the enemy position, saying exactly where they are. So those are the kinds of dynamics I talk about in this evolution of my life and of warfare and of leadership that I talk about in the book.
One of the things I noticed, Mark, is that most of us who have not served in the military, we have these romantic ideas about war, right? I mean, let's go get them, boys, and all the good stuff happens, and the good guys win, and maybe there's a little tragedy here and there, but for the most part, everything comes out great. You didn't do that.
No.
You don't romanticize war at all.
Because it's not something to be romanticized.
Yeah.
It is for young people going to war the first time. I think some of it may be false bravado to try and incorporate a bit of courage into what they're facing. But truthfully, there's nothing romantic about war. It's killing. It's people being harmed. It's destructions of infrastructure. It's not living your life where you can see your children go off to school and have peace in your neighborhood and have a barbecue. I mean, all the things that really are associated with just living your life are not found in a conflict situation. Everything is turned upside down, and there's so much pain and so much anguish that you shouldn't romanticize it. And I certainly hope I didn't do it in this. The only thing you can romanticize is the camaraderie between the individuals who face it together. That team building, that teamwork, the requirements of leadership in a crisis, that is romantic because it's the best of what I have ever seen in human beings when they come together to accomplish difficult missions and they're prepared to give their life in order to accomplish that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've heard before from soldiers is that when the crap hits the fan, what you're not serving God, you're not serving your country, you're serving the guy next to you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. It is all about your team.
Yeah.
Now, beforehand, you can say, hey, I'm joining the military because I want to serve my country, or my uncle told me I should do it, or any of those number of reasons. But when it hits the fan, it's the men and women next to you that pull you through.
Yeah. Got a couple other questions for you here, but wait a minute. What's coming up here? Whoa, Mark, you know what that means?
It means wake up.
It means wake up. We got to wake up here. It's time for rapid fire Q&A.
Okay, good.
It's something we do here on the podcast just to get to know you a little bit as a person and not as a retired general or as a professor, or just as a human being.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna de-romanticize.
I can't wait.
All right. Do you have a favorite saying or quote?
Yeah, leaders don't have the right to have a bad day.
Okay. This is a food item, and I know you watch what you eat very carefully.
No, I'm a foodie.
Oh, you're a foodie. Okay.
Okay.
If this item had 0 calories and it had just incredibly high nutritional value, what could you eat every day?
Pasta bolagnese.
Pasta bolognese.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or pizza.
Or
one
pizza.
Of the two.
So
yeah.
it's Italian.
Italian,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Or beer.
Okay, so Italian. So spaghetti and beer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or pizza and beer.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Oh man, keep your eyes open. Use your eyes and your ears in the 2 eyes, the 2 ears that you have in relationship to the 1 mouth. Look more, hear more, speak less, and learn and grow every day.
Okay. Was the young Mark not so good at that, maybe?
He was not so good. I wanted to step up a little bit too fast. Take a little bit of time to reflect. My wife has a saying, there's always a time between stimulus and response. Use it well.
Use it well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's a character trait that you admire in others?
Integrity and humility.
Okay. My music tastes are?
Oh gosh, all over the landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. because we're recording this the week after the Super Bowl. I was enamored with the performance of Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of him before, but
Yeah.
it was a phenomenal performance.
It really was.
But
yeah.
I like rock. I don't like country all that much. I'm beginning to like rap a little bit, and I was turned on by the Broadway play musical to the Broadway musical Hamilton to all the various styles of rap, and I think it's fascinating genre.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but our producer here of this podcast, Jeremy Zorn, he's a musician. So
Really?
you'll have to check out Jeremy's events that he has around town.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's in a couple different bands.
Super.
Do you have a morning ritual?
I do.
And what, can you share it?
Always exercise.
Always exercise.
First thing,
So
yeah.
get up and
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Do you have you go to a gym or you do it at home or?
It depends. Sometimes the gym. Sometimes I've got a Peloton, so I use that every day. And I think it's just important to do something. Oh well, that comes after making the bed. I didn't
Square corners?
No. Throughout my military career, I would always leave the house early. My wife would still be in bed, and we've actually switched roles. She now gets up early, and I get up later. But I always make the bed in the morning.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's just the first thing you want to do to get something done before you do anything else.
I don't remember. A few years ago, there was actually, I think it was a retired military person that wrote about making your bed or something like that.
Not only that, but he is the retired military person that has the quote on the front of my book. It's Admiral Bill McRaven. He gave a speech about make your bed.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a great guy. He was the guy that captured, or his team captured bin Laden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that even the title of the book? Make Your Bed First or something like that?
I think it was. He gave a speech first at, I think it was the University of Texas, because he was the chancellor of the Texas school system. And he said the speech was to a graduating class was make your bed, because then you'll at least accomplish one thing every day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
then he wrote a
good.
book about it. Yeah.
That's good.
And Bill is a great guy, Admiral McRaven, super guy.
I should have blank.
Oh man, this puts me on the spot. I should have been a better father.
Okay.
I watch our two sons, and I am just impressed beyond all belief in how good of parents they are.
Well, you did something right then.
Well, yeah, I hope so. I think either me or my
or
wife.
or your wife took
Yeah,
over that part
but,
of it. Yeah.
I should have been a better father.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I might know the answer to this one. What's the best advice you ever received?
Wow. So many. Learn and grow every day.
Okay. I thought maybe you were going to say something about the advice from your guidance counselor that sent you.
That wasn't advice. That was just, this is
what
you need
that
to
was
do.
survival. That was
Yeah,
survival.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's something? Just a couple more, and then we'll get back to your story. What's something they don't teach you in school but should?
Values. A lot of people. In fact, I teach it now in the Crummer class. I teach to the MBA program students. It's important to understand what you believe in, your values, and to polish those every day, because values are so critically important to helping you make the right decisions. If you have the right values, if you know who you are and what you believe in, you'll never make a bad decision.
So you know the why, right?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Success is
family and friends.
okay. And last question: if you hadn't followed the path you took into the military, what do you think you might have done or become profession-wise?
I have no idea. Anything from a professional scoutmaster to a race car driver to, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, and back then I probably had no idea either. Just did not know where I was heading. And again, that was one of the things the military did for me. It gave me a vision of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to do it, and who I wanted to be, because it taught those values. The values that I just mentioned a minute ago are taught in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge differentiator between the military lifestyle and the private sector in terms of understanding what you believe in and how you apply that to your daily basis. But your last question, I can't answer. I really can't answer.
Okay. Well,
I
maybe
don't
it's something
know.
that'll come up as
Yeah.
we're talking here.
Yeah.
So when you went off to West Point, had you at that time had you planned on making the military
No.
career? No,
No.
you were going
It
to
was
do your
just-
service and get out,
and then get out and do something else.
because something would happen. Something would inform you of, oh, this is my destiny. This is
Right.
my path.
Exactly. Which is not a bad way to go to
No,
college,
no,
too.
not at all.
But truthfully, it was interesting because there is a 5-year commitment to the military after you graduate.
Okay.
And 5 years turned into 10, turned into 15, turned into 30, turned into almost 4 decades.
How does that work, Mark? Is each enlistment so many years, or?
Not for an officer.
Okay.
For an officer, you stay in until they either tell you to leave or till you resign.
Okay.
And retire. But once you get into the longer stages, like the 20-year mark, the 30-year mark, then there are some limits. When you are not supposed to serve longer than 30, except for general officers. They tell you can stay in if you want to, and here's the new job we're going to put you in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. You wrote the book for your sons, or you wrote the journal for your sons, but I think you said somewhere along the line that you actually wrote this book more for your grandkids,
Yeah.
or as much for your grandkids as you did for your sons, because they're already adults and they've learned many of the lessons that you hope to impart.
Right.
What do you hope they come away with, your grandkids? And you have 6 or 7?
We have 7. Yeah,
7.
we have 5 grandsons and 2 granddaughters. I hope what they come away with is not so much my legacy, which is what our youngest son told me he wanted me to do for them, but it's the advice they get and how they apply it. And understanding better. I was with my publisher last week. I was signing the pre-orders to go out, and we were talking about the book itself, and he said, this is really a book about 3 things. He says it's about family, it's about leadership, and it's about the military. And I had never thought of it that way. So if our sons get a better sense of family and leadership and an understanding of what the military does, if they're in it or not, because both of their parents, their fathers, and in one case their mother too, have served in the military. So I want them to have an understanding of what the military is, and also the dynamics of conflict in war or in a crisis situation in the private sector. And I think they'll get that out of the book.
And do you see a lot of similarities between the two? Meaning war, crisis, and crisis and...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was working with Advent Health during the COVID pandemic, and it was very similar to combat. Saw the same implications for the physicians, the nurses, and administrators who were dealing with the daily crisis. And I write about that in the book, how they adapted their normal routine to, just catastrophic situations, how from a professional standpoint, and this is interesting because what I loved doing when I was with healthcare is comparing the military to healthcare, because medicine and the military have one thing in common. It's a profession that deals in life and death, but in very different ways. So when something like the pandemic comes along, it is a battle for survival against an enemy. In this case, it's a virus versus another individual, but you fight it in the same way, and you fight for intelligence, you gather information, you adapt your techniques. So anyone that has a business that's going through a crisis, they face the same thing, other than in some situations life and death, that anyone in the military or healthcare faces when they're dealing with something like this.
Which reminds me of another question I had for you was, when I first got your book, I was just sort of leafing through it just to get a general idea of it. And I saw some entries from the journal that I was thinking, I'm not sure I would want to tell my family those things. How did you
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's a chapter in the book talking about an engagement where in the original journal reflection that I wrote for the boys, I lied. I didn't give them what actually happened because it was more catastrophic than I described. But in the reflection part that I wrote as part of the book, I told the whole story and then told the results of it. And it was one of those traumatic situations for me personally that has lasted the last 35 years. I sometimes dream about it, have nightmares about it. Still, they are less than they used to be, but it affected my life for a while until my wife said, "You need to talk to somebody. You need to talk to a professional." But in that one chapter, I told a lie in the reflection to our sons, and I opened it up and what really happened that caused the trauma. So yeah, there's some of those there are some of those stories in the book too.
Yes, I saw them. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't mention what it was because it'll be a surprise to anyone that reads.
I don't want to try to give any spoilers away.
No, well, I gave this book to two of my former military colleagues, and one of them, when he read that section, he called me immediately. He said, "Holy shit!" He said, "You didn't tell me about this." I said, "Yeah, I didn't tell anybody about it." So that even with someone who was there, it surprised him.
And did he try to talk you out of including it, or he didn't have?
I talked to him about that. I said, "What do you think?" I said, "Should I leave this in here or not?" And he said, "Boy, you could go either way on that." He said, "But I'd leave it in because it gets to what soldiers face. It really gives." I mean, it's sort of like the opening scene to Saving Private Ryan. I mean, Spielberg was masterful in that opening scene because it is the most lifelike situation in a movie that you can imagine of soldiers going ashore on D-Day.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's why we don't romanticize war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a little bit about the business side of your book. So you found a publisher right off the bat.
Right.
I mean, which is, you probably know that's amazing in and of itself.
That is amazing.
Most people who write a book, they spend months or years, if ever, getting a publisher.
Yeah.
So you got a publisher right off the bat. What was your writing practice like? I mean, did you have a certain discipline, or you did your exercise and you went to writing, or how did?
I did. Well, I mean, I'm still doing other things, so I had to work it around a normal schedule. But truthfully, if I had a day, what I would normally do is take one reflection and try and finish, one journal entry and try and finish the reflection in one sitting.
Okay.
Now I'd go back to it. But that's what I attempted to do. Now, sometimes those reflections lasted a couple of days. I'll tell you a quick story, Michael.
Yeah, please.
I became friends. I'm a real good friends with a woman named Jamie Gangel, who is a reporter for CNN.
Yes, I know her.
And I did not know her husband is a guy who I'm sure you also know of, is Daniel Silva.
The writer.
The writer.
The novelist.
Yeah, the novelist who's written 29 New York Times
Yeah,
bestsellers.
read him. I've read him several times.
Yeah, so Danny gave me some advice, and he has some very interesting writing techniques, which he talks about in his book signings. One is that he writes longhand on yellow paper and on his floor of his office with a pencil. He has two number 2 pencils, and he does everything longhand. Yeah, which is bizarre. And he's on his stomach writing on the floor.
Wow.
But the other thing he told me is he said that writing a book is like a cross-country journal. There are some days where you're speeding down the highway and getting all kinds of things done. He said there's other days when you want to stop and view the scenery. And then there's other days when there's a third type of day when your car doesn't start and it just doesn't get moving. He said you got to be prepared for all three of those techniques when you're writing. I'd never got to the point where my car didn't start.
Okay.
There were some times when I went back and ripped up what I did the first time and started over in terms of the reflection. But for the most part, it flowed pretty easily.
And do you use a computer for writing?
I do, yeah. No number 2 pencils for me, yeah.
Okay. So you sit down at a desk and use your computer.
Yep.
Okay, this is 35 years ago, most of all of that except for your reflections. What parallels do you see between those days and today?
The leadership requirements of individuals, how you build teams. I didn't know as much of the details back then as I do today on how you can be successful in leading. The camaraderie among soldiers, the dynamics among people who just want to be a part and want to be respected on a daily basis. There's one chapter in there that I wrote about cultures. And what I had the great opportunity to do was, like I said, I've been to 123 different countries, and I've seen the cultures in each one. And whereas they're all different and they're all dynamic, it's fascinating to have that opportunity to see how other people live and how they do things. So that there's still more countries to go to, so that's a continuum that I want to see more of. And just, an evolution of love for those who are your friends and families. The love, if you're in a good relationship with both friends and family, if I'll use my wife for an example, our love has grown in different segments, in different patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of neat if you can stay together for a long time with an individual, because you see those different patterns and how they build on one another. And you shouldn't give up on either friends or family. And that's one of the things I learned going through the book again, because some of the friends back then are still some of my best friends now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that another thing that jumped out at me was your comments about, because I've lived overseas as well, not in the military, but it really rang true to me when you were talking about the friends you had in Germany and how you felt, just a part of the community.
Yeah. The last chapter I dedicate to the German friends who took care of us, by the way, and that was fascinating, because all 3 times I deployed to combat, it was all from Europe. We were living in Europe at the time. And the first time, the German Polizei would guard our bases because all the men were gone, and I'm not being sexist here, it was mostly the men on our bases. So all the women and children were left behind. In 2003, same thing. This time it was sometimes husbands and wives who were gone, and their children and family members were returning. And the Germans in a town called Wiesbaden, which we lived in when I was a division commander, the German mayor dedicated several sessions they have a opera house, a Kurhaus they call it, where they would entertain the Americans who were left behind, the spouses and children. It had special days for them. And this mayor was phenomenal in terms of making sure the 10,000 or so Americans that were still in his city were taken care of and became part of the community while their soldiers were away. And those are the kind of things you just can't forget. I mean, it's the outreach that makes the world different.
Yeah. And how does living abroad, in your opinion or your experience, how does living abroad shape your opinions or thoughts about America?
We could learn.
I say the United States of America.
Yeah.
Thank you. Apologies to Bad Bunny.
yeah. And Bad Bunny did a good job in talking about that. But we could learn a lot from people who are in other countries, from the sublime to the ridiculous, to taking more time at meals, to having families together at meal and making it an event as opposed to just a time to eat your food, all the way to national security issues like cybersecurity. The country of Estonia has it going on when you talk about cybersecurity. And we could learn all sorts of things from them. And it's a small little country in the Baltics, but they've got it licked. I mean, everybody votes by their computer. They have protections that don't allow for intrusions because they were intruded once by the Russians. I could go through every single country and talk about the great things I've learned from Norway down to Greece, and how we don't necessarily want to take all their things on, but we could certainly take on quite a few things that they could teach us.
Mm-hmm. And do you still like to travel?
I love to travel.
Do you still after doing all that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What's up next?
This summer we're going. This coming summer, early summer, we're going to the west coast of the United States and going from Mexico up to Canada along the west coast, and probably drinking a lot of wine and tasting some great west coast food. This last summer, we went to 9 countries in Europe. We went to all the Baltic states, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Germany, and Poland. And it was a great trip.
Do you normally go in groups, or you go on your own, or both?
Okay, you're going to hate me for this, but a couple of years ago, I was recruited by a cruise ship to give lectures.
Okay,
so
I don't hate you for that.
They give me They give me time to give 3 lectures on a cruise ship on Crystal Cruises, and the cruise is free for my wife and I, and we get to pick where we want to go.
Well,
which
that's
is kind of sweet.
Are you still doing that?
We're doing that usually twice a year.
Do they need any podcast hosts on there?
Probably. Probably.
I could do that. Okay, so where else might you be talking about your book? You're here on March 1st.
On March 1st. Right after that, we here at the
library.
Winter Park Library on March 1st, We have another event here in Orlando at the Colonial Barnes and Noble toward the latter part of March. The week of the book release, which is the 10th of March, I go up to D.C. I'm on a couple TV shows, Anderson Cooper, Nicole Wallace,
wonderful.
Morning Joe, and then do a thing with the Carnegie Foundation and also with a bookstore up there to be determined. The publisher is working that out. I go to New Orleans in early April, and then to St. Louis in late April, my hometown, and I'm doing some things at a Barnes & Noble in St. Louis. Probably going to go Chicago because I have some friends there that want me to come up and do a book signing and a tour, along with some physicians at the University of Chicago. What did I miss? I'm missing a couple, and I can't. Oh, and D.C.
Okay.
And I'm not sure of the dates of that yet. The marketeers of the publishing company are still working some of those things.
Sure. And I'll mention here, Mark, that for the library here, the Winter Park Library, for anybody who wants to sign up for your session that's on March 1st, or for any other session for that matter, you need to make a reservation. You need to sign up with a reservation, and you can do that by going to winterparklibrary.org/events. That's where all the events are listed. You can find Mark's and everybody else's event there. You just sign up. It's free. It'll reserve your spot to hear your talk.
Yeah, and I think Jody Lazar, I'm not sure she's committed to this. I think Jody, who works here at the Winter Park Library, is going to be the moderator for
that's fantastic.
That'd be good. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. Do you still have her in class? Or
I do.
Yeah.
I do. She's got one this last semester. In fact, I'm teaching this weekend, and she's going to be in the class. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if I see her, I'll have to hound her about her homework.
Okay. You should. She's pretty good about it, though.
So you got this writing thing in your blood now. You got another book planned, or what's going on?
I do. In fact, I can't talk about it because when I was down at the publisher, I threw an idea at him, and he liked it a lot. So, in fact, today I'm talking to one of his teammates who's going to talk me through. It's a different kind of book. That's all I can say.
Okay.
And then another one I've got that I want to do about leadership. Not my personal leadership, but leadership theory and practice and experiences.
More of a textbook, or?
No, not really. But it's more. Most leadership books are, here's what I did that was so great that made me a great leader.
Yeah.
I don't want that. What I'd like to do is talk about leadership theories, and then talk a little bit about how what makes up the elements of leadership. The attributes, competencies, influence methods, and context. And then give some practical examples of how to do different things that people might have thoughts about.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but that's coming too.
And no novel. No Daniel Silva.
No, I'm
rubbing off on you there.
No, I can't make stuff up.
Well, some of the stuff you got sounds like it might have been made up.
Exactly.
Last question for you. Okay, so and you mentioned that only 1% of the U.S. population is served in the military.
Right.
But you think, and I think too, that this book relates to anybody.
It does.
How so?
Well, I think, first of all, like we said, it talks a little bit about family.
Yeah.
It talks a lot about leadership under different circumstances. And it gives information about the military, just so people can be informed. But the other thing is it really gets to the emotions. It causes, I think, if you're even a non-military person, you're going to read this and reflect on your life. And that's what I ask people to do in different parts of the book. Reflect on these things. How are you living your life? How are you making a difference? Or, as an expression I always like to use, another mentor coined, make it matter. We lost a lot of soldiers in Iraq. And I have a box at home that two other people share the same box. And we put the cards of pictures of all of our soldiers in this box, who gave the last full measure and sacrificed themselves. And on the top of the box it says "Make it matter," and the intent of that is to remember that they're no longer here. So it's up to us to make the world a better place and to make it matter for them and what they might have done in their life. So that's hopefully a message that gets through, but also I think the book gives people something they might not have otherwise seen, whether it's the life of a military family going through, turmoil and trauma, to combat situations, to silliness like emotions and love and friendship and MREs, like I said, and chaplains in the military talking about them, and cultural issues. in different countries. I hope it's kind of a potpourri or a smorgasbord of ideas that people will walk away and say, "Oh, that was fun."
Yeah.
That's what I want people to say, that
Okay.
it was insightful, but it was also fun to read.
It would be interesting, by the way, and maybe you can encourage her to do this. It'd be interesting to see your wife's reflections on those years. What's it like to be a spouse?
I have talked to her about that.
Yeah.
So, and I've kind of persuaded her to write. We have a framed stitchery in our bathroom that she made when I was a second lieutenant, and it's a quote from a woman in the 1840s that said, it says, I married a soldier, and where he is, let me get this right.
Yeah.
I married a soldier, and where he is home to me.
Yeah.
She has a lot more stories than I'll ever have.
Yeah.
She's a lot stronger than I'll ever be.
She might be able to, maybe with a good interviewer, she might be...
Maybe you should do an interview
Yeah.
after the book signing.
Yeah, maybe we can do that. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe would she be interested in doing that?
She would.
Okay.
I think she would. She's very insightful.
Okay.
She's a very powerful and graceful woman for her 4'11" body.
Oh boy, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, Mark, it's really been a pleasure having you, and thank you for your service.
Yep, thank
and
you.
thank you for being on the podcast.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Appreciate
thank you very much.
And good luck
Appreciate
to you on the book
it. Okay,
world.
good.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Take it easy. Yeah. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Books and Beyond from the Winter Park Library. This podcast would not be possible without the generous help and support from the library staff, and especially from Jeremy Zorn. Jeremy's official title is Public Services Librarian, but he does many things here at the library, including producing this podcast. We can't do this without you, Jeremy. Our theme music is from the song Don't Go by Bovine Joe and the Buffalo Herd. That's Herd spelled H-E-A-R-D. We hope you'll let your friends and others know about this podcast and that you'll come by the library for one of our offerings, which you can find at winterparklibrary.org/events. That's winterparklibrary.org/events. If you have questions or suggestions for the podcast or just want to talk about Books and Beyond, please send an email to podcast@winterparklibrary.org. That's an email to podcast@winterparklibrary.org. Remember that the Winter Park Library promotes the free and open exchange of ideas and does not attempt to control or take responsibility for any opinions that may be expressed in this podcast. Opinions expressed in this podcast do not constitute or imply an endorsement or a reflection of the library's policies or beliefs. This is Michael Werner, wishing you well until our next episode of Books and Beyond.